growing up in Lake Geneva was a pretty small town life. I think I was right on 330 Center Street. So my mom would not let me cross the street without my brothers or sisters. I remember that, 'cause pretty young. So I'd walk around the block a lot. My mom used to call me Pigpen because I like to play in the bushes in front of 330 Center Street, which they've since cut down. But when it would rain, I think the little worms dig around in there and leave like little piles of dirt. So I'd like to go squish those. So that was fun. So typical little kid stuff. Of course, my dad at that time was working from home. He had lost his job with Kemper Insurance, I believe it was, or Fireman's Fund. He'd lost his job in October 1970. I was born in November 1970, and he was pretty well established working from home. And he had a bunch of shoe repair equipment in the basement, buffers, grinders, and of course there was a workbench with leather cutting knives on there. And he wore a gray apron. It kind of looks like if you've ever seen old pillows, like in the Army, they kind of have stripes on them, those kind of bluish, grayish stripes on there. It was made of that material. And I had one of my own because I used to like to help him out in the shop. And he made sure I had my own special set of tools to use, for like any leather work or whatever that I was going to be doing, which was none because I was like 3 or 4. And so he made sure to grind those knives down really flat, so they were like duller than butter knives. And because of that, I have all of my fingers, so I appreciate my dad looking out for me that way. So that was good. So I got to help him out there. And like I said, we moved probably in 76, maybe 77 at the most, to a place on Chapin Road, which was, out in the country, just a couple miles down the road. And that was fun. But I hadn't been back into 330 Center Street until 2016, maybe 2015, something like that. And I walked down into the basement, and I remember it being a lot bigger, like with ceilings that were like 15 feet tall or something, right? I used to climb the support pole or whatever. I used to climb up it and think how big that place was. My toy chest was also in a part of the basement. And as I walked down and was looking around the basement, I hit my head on the ceiling. I was like, oh my God, this place is really tiny. How were 7 of us living in this little tiny home? So that was kind of fun. So there you go. So there's some opener stuff for you. Yeah.
When did you realize what your father had created was becoming something much bigger than maybe what you first thought it to be?
Well, I think that's interesting. There's probably a couple different evolutions of that. As a young man, I would follow my dad around to conventions. They were pretty small, but you don't really have a sense of that. So I was 5, 6 years old, and everyone would ask my dad for his autograph. He'd be like, oh, hi, I'm Gary Gygax. Oh, Mr. Gygax, can I get your autograph? And he'd be like, yeah, of course, sure, no problem. Call me Gary. And so, as kids do, I would say, I'm Luke Gygax. Do you want my autograph? and people would be like, sure, kid, here, yeah, sign this thing, right? And so I did that so much that my sister Heidi was dating a guy named Richard Wank, and a real nice gamer guy. He's probably 16 or something, but he went and got a T-shirt made for me. And back in the 70s, there used to be iron-on letters. So it said, my name is Luke Gygax on the front in dark colored letters. And on the back, it said in rainbow letters, do you want my autograph? And so I'd wear that to conventions. It was pretty fun. So there, I knew my dad was a big deal because gamers were asking, for his autograph. But we're talking conventions are just a couple hundred people. And then when I was turning, I think it was 12 years old, the A-Team was very popular, right? And by that time, we'd moved into a house in Clinton. It was a 14-room house with five bedrooms. We had 22 acres of land. It was massive. My mom went from having no car, and then her first car was we called it the Green Slime. Her first car was like she was 37 or 38, something like that. And it was a Woody station wagon, a green Woody station wagon, we called the Green Slime, and it was used. Now, by that time, she had a Cadillac Seville Elegante, which was pretty sweet. And so we'd moved on up a little bit, right, as they say, to, just like the Jeffersons. And so it was like my 12th birthday, and so I told my dad, can you get Mr. T to come for my birthday? And he didn't say no. He looked into it. And he's like, Mr. T wants $10,000 a day in like 1982 or whatever it was. And he said, if he'd asked for 5,000, I would have done it. But so I knew that was pretty big time, right? Another phase of where I knew it was big time. When I got the T-shirt, I still couldn't get whatever I wanted at the grocery store. But there came a time when I was about 8 where I'd ask my mom, can I get King Vitamin cereal? And instead of saying no and getting the generic kind, she said yes. That's winning, right? That's a pretty big deal as a kid. So it just depends on the perspective. So from those like material points of view, those are material markers. But it really wasn't until after my father died, that I realized that he'd made a lasting impact, not just as a game designer, right? D&D is a great game. I've loved playing it all my life. I've had lots and lots of fun. But when he passed away, the outpouring of folks who didn't know him, who never met him, was astounding. Sure, he corresponded with a lot of people. He took the time to help develop, kind of his peer group, young designers and stuff. He really enjoyed mentoring people and giving them tips and reading stuff. And there's a boatload of people here who will talk to you and say, oh yeah, I sent him this and I couldn't believe he responded and he read it and he gave me tips and pointers. So he loved doing that. He just felt like part of that was, just part of the community that he came out of was a cottage industry and everybody helped everyone. But it's people who never met him. And they said, it's like I lost a family member or an uncle because this game was so important to me. It helped me. And then there's several options of what it was, but it's usually overcome some sort of obstacle. I had a learning disability and I had dyslexia, but we didn't know what that was back then. It wasn't diagnosed. People just assumed I was dumb, right? And I saw the covers of these books, these fantastic monsters and these scenes on them, and it made me want to pick them up and read it. Or I was incredibly shy, and it just was like painful for me to try to speak to people because I felt so awkward. But I saw this game, and I saw what they're doing. It looked so interesting. I got the courage up to do it, and by pretending to be a character in a game, well, man, I learned to come out of my shell. I learned that I could do that too. It's a skill that transfers into real life. Unfortunately, some kids have parents who are dealing with addictions and it's a bad household or a violent household and things like that. And through D&D, people were, as children, young adults, adolescents, able to escape through the game, right? And enjoy some time, which is a good mental break, but also learn that they could impact the world and that they could be a hero and that they could change their fate and that they could have the strength to break away from that, right? And it gave them hope and courage, and that's important. And so when I started learning about all that it had done for people, I forgot a very important one. I met my best friends and we still game together and we're still friends 30 years later because we did this. So since I was 12 or whatever it is, and now I'm in my 40s, I still have this great group. I met my wife through there, and now we have a family and we game together. All these stories, the men and women who had learning disabilities, usually followed up with, and now I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm whatever. Thank you, Gary, for creating this game that helped me work through this and look where I am today. A smaller subset, but important one, is creators. So people who create, whether it's video games or write books or things like that, talk about the impact of Dungeons and Dragons and how they realized they loved creating and they wanted to go into that world, and how they discovered that this was where their talents lie and who they wanted to be. So probably took me, I started learning that after he passed away, and the impact of it was hard to imagine for me. And maybe it's just, you can't see the forest for the trees. I was too close to it. But I began to realize my dad changed the world. He is someone who changed popular culture and made such a huge impact. And I didn't realize at the time he was just my dad. He's the guy who's like, hey, wash the dishes. Have you mowed the lawn? Get up. It's time to go to school. So it took me a while to figure that out. But once I kind of realized that after the year after he passed away, I wanted to make sure he was never forgotten. And his name was now no longer on the books. and I was afraid that the younger generation of gamers wouldn't know who Gary Gygax was. And so through Gary, kind of wanted to make sure that his legacy would still be there, and in a sense that you never truly die as long as people remember you, and I didn't want my dad to be forgotten. Yeah.
Feels like with your announcement yesterday that Wizards is kind of returning to honoring his past as well. But they departed from it for a little bit. But
Sure.
It feels like they're kind of coming back around and actually reaching out to the community a little bit more
Yeah.
and honoring all the age groups and not
Yeah.
just one target one.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Dan Ayub, when I met with him, well, Joe Manganello gave me a call in August of 2025, and he said, "Hey, the new head of D&D, Dan Ayub, he's in town, and he wants to meet you." And he said, "Can you have dinner?" And I was like, "Well," I was thinking, it's really a terrible time. I was one day out of surgery for a torn labrum, so I was in a sling and on pain pills. But I asked my wife, I said, "Hey, we want to go to dinner, you can drive me down there." And she was kind enough to say yes. And so we drove down the next day and met Dan. And he told me the story of being offered the job. And he had to say, "I'll think about it." And he said, the reason it's my dream job, but the reason I said that is, in his words, "I don't want to fuck this up." And I said, "That's why you're the right guy for the job. That's because it means something to you. It's that important that you have to think about, do I want to do this? Because what if I fail?" So he put thought into it, and he's like, "Yeah, I really want to do this." And he apologized to me twice during that dinner. He said, "I am sorry for the way your family's been treated." And he said, "I want to heal that divide between the family and the franchise." And I said, "Dan, you didn't do it. It's okay." But he's Canadian, so he did it twice. But no, and then and he talked about, I think we've gone a little bit astray, and I'm not talking out of school. He said all this publicly. We've gone a little astray, and I want to reconnect with the fan base and listen and hear them where they want to go. And my goal is to make great products, give them to people, and let them play and enjoy the game. I thought, yeah, that's the right thing to be doing, because there was edition wars a little while ago, right? Thankfully, it's kind of calmed down. I think it's kind of gone away. But people were like, "This is the right way to play D&D. This is my way, is the right way. It's got to be," whatever that was, right? And I just think that's silly. There's no right way to play D&D, or no wrong way to play D&D, so long as everybody in the group is having fun and have a good time. It's a game. It's meant to be enjoyed. Sure, it has all these other benefits that come along with playing it, but that should never get in the way of the fact that it's an awesome game and to have fun and make friends, right? That's the primary thing that we're doing.
Talking about your father's legacy, and now that you're a father,
Yeah.
I mean, what are some of those lessons that you feel like, as you've gotten older, that you remember them teaching you, just through gaming or
Yeah.
just in life?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as we go through life, and this applies pretty much, I think, universally, you understand your parents' struggles a little bit more. And you understand a lot of the ways my dad reacted to stuff or did things based on, I'm like, oh, he was that age when he was dealing with this? Wow, that was tough. Or look at all these things that happened. But I think the thing that I learned from my dad is hang out with your kids, spend some time. What are the things that I treasure and remember about my dad? It's not stuff he bought me. It's not necessarily a trip we took somewhere unless we got to spend time together. It wasn't introducing me to, or Dr. Joyce Brothers or, Don Cornelius or whomever it was that we met and, having lunch with at this Oberlins. I liked the Hulk, so I got to meet Bill Bixby, which was pretty cool. So any younger people, I'm sure that's meaningless. But yeah, but that was pretty cool. So those are fond memories. But really, the times that I treasure was time I got to spend with my dad, and so really being available for your kids and listening to them and hearing what they're saying, giving them that opportunity. My daughters don't really want to play D&D with me because I'm their dad and I'm not that cool. But they will go and play D&D with their friends. Okay, that's right, I'll accept that. But there's other ways that I can listen to them and try to hear them. And I think that part is important. Some quality time with your children is good, and teaching them life lessons through gaming, I think, helps a lot too. So it's really a consequence-free environment. I mean, your character may suffer, but that doesn't have that much impact on us in real life. Although losing your character is tough. You know, I had to learn through that. But you know, you can build resiliency. You can learn tactics on how to talk to people, learn how to persuade, problem solving, learn to wait your turn. All these important skills through playing games, and especially role-playing games. I think you had a question.
Yeah. So you talked a lot about with passing on your father's legacy and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a huge part of that is how much he meant to you as a father. I'm kind of curious, what do you hope your legacy is with, I guess, both your family and with the larger gaming community that you hope that you will leave for everybody?
Yeah, it's not something I really thought about, if I'm being honest with you, because so thank you for asking me that uncomfortable question. I appreciate that. I think that's what I'm supposed to say. That's a great question, so I can buy a little time to think about it. Yeah, I haven't done a lot of introspection on that. I really want to. Well, and I set a goal with GaryCon to make it a convention where you can walk in to GaryCon not knowing anybody, having never been here, and leave with a group of friends. And I think we've set those conditions to be that way, to be welcoming, just to make a community that's welcoming, so that we all feel comfortable. We can all make friends. I think that's important. We can get away from screens and reconnect with folks and have a great time. And that's been successful. And I want my dad's work and his name to be remembered, and that's extended to a sense to a lot of people that I knew as a kid that I got to know again as adults through GaryCon. And unfortunately, a few of those guys are no longer with us, but a lot of them are. And so I cherish those opportunities to hang out with them and see them, and it's nice to see them, get a moment in the spotlight here at GaryCon where people come up and ask for their autograph, and they feel their work is recognized and they feel appreciated. So that through GaryCon, I wanted to do that. It's really less about me. Sure, I guess you have to have somebody who's the leader and the head of that. But it's a team effort. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's certainly nothing I can do alone. I like that my children are participating, my wife and children are participating in GaryCon, and I want to pass that on to them so that GaryCon 50 happens, right? Because I probably won't be here in 30 some years, right? 32 years, I guess. So make me like 88. I definitely won't be working GaryCon if I'm 88. I'm going to be sitting in the corner hanging out and playing games. That's it. So I think that's neat. And as far as the legacy through Creative Works, I really just think it would be awesome. And it's almost like I have to pinch myself. I'm going to get to publish official D&D products in Greyhawk, and the name Gygax is going to be on official D&D products again. That's something I didn't think would ever happen. And so I am over the moon about that. And I can't thank Dan enough for reaching out and opening that door. And so I want to make great products that gamers are excited about and that people enjoy, and just they get to love Greyhawk as much as I did as a kid getting to play with my dad.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Since you brought that up? Because that actually is my second question that I'm going to have. Since you brought that up, love that you shared that with Greyhawk having the name Gygax on there.
Yeah.
I know it's early, you can't really say what's happening, but one thing I did want to ask you is, what is something about Greyhawk, especially with it having such a powerful meaning for you and your family, with it being like a family setting and all that? What's something from the Greyhawk setting that you're hoping that you can bring into whatever you're working on, what Wizards of the Coast might work on? Because I honestly like seeing involvement games with Legends of Greyhawk, like bringing in some of those older things. I think that's a really cool thing, but I want to kind of hear from you something that either it's a personal thing or something that used to be a thing in Greyhawk. What's something that you hope we might see more of?
Well, I love 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It has done so much to extend the fan base, to expand the fan base, to bring so many people into the community for that, I think Mike Merles and his team, genius. They went from several million people playing to, I think, over 50 million worldwide playing, something like that. So, but a huge expansion, right? And so many young people love it. It has, the D&D brand has like a 95 or so, or 93% recognition rate, which, you know, that's like Coca-Cola, right? You know, like it's up there. It's a major brand. So that's outstanding. Now, as a nitpicky gamer from the old days, I'd say this newfangled Dungeons and Dragons is too easy. So I would get out my cane and shake it at the players and make some alternate rules that I think would make keep Greyhawk Gygaxian, right? And I have some ideas on how to do that. And there's some, I'd like to, you know, feature my character Melf in some of the things that were going on, because for heaven's sake, he's been portrayed the wrong way in art and everything like that. It's nothing like the character that I was playing. Especially the action figure way back when that had a different name. They're like, oh, Melf is something in Grit and Slate. It's like, no, he's not blonde hair and doesn't, come on. But anyway, so it's neither here nor there. So those are just personal things. But I would like to see Greyhawk made once again to be somewhere that's challenging, where there's tension, where you feel like when you go on an adventure, you are not on a cakewalk. You don't have tights and a cape on, and you aren't a superhero. This is potentially dangerous. If you don't think, if you don't plan and husband your resources, you might not make it out. And when you go down, there's consequences, right? So for me, that tension builds excitement and focuses you and makes the rewards so much the greater. And of course, I think a basic thing in any game is you want to have wonderment, so that you don't know exactly what every creature does that you run into, right? So keeping that variation, making people think. One of the things that's evolved from older school gaming or gaming, Greyhawk in the 80s is, although I shouldn't say that, but what's been highlighted more is story arcs, longer story arcs, including, there's always been puzzles and riddles and things like that, but I think sometimes people want a little more investigation and a little less combat, or a good balance of it, right? But being able to make it something that accommodates all play styles equally, which is a difficult thing to do, while leaving room for the DM to personalize their adventure, right? As strange as it sounds, it's actually probably easier to write a very detailed adventure that tells you exactly what is going on, because then it's kind of like a video game in a sense, where you have hard parameters that you can't really get around to go through the story. But if you leave enough to sandbox it a little bit, that's harder to do. It's harder to do well. So hopefully I answered your question in that wandering, meandering way. All right.
Yeah, no, that was good.
All right.
Has anyone approached you to try to make a movie about your father's story, TSR, and just Lake Geneva as a whole? And if so, if you were cast in the movie, who would play your father?
It's a great question. Yes, I've been approached by several people to do something like that. I'm hopeful to do something and have an announcement before too terribly long, but I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, or count the chicks before they hatch. So yeah, there's a few people that could play my dad. Probably the one that I would like the most, who I had the pleasure of gaming with online one time, would be David Harbour. I think he could do it very well. Because I think he could pull it off.
And who would play you?
Who's the guy who plays Reacher? We'll call that guy. Yeah. There you go, Alan Richards or John Cena. I think those are probably the closest. Oh yeah. I don't think there's anyone huge enough to play with us as an adult. No, I don't know who. People used to say, and these guys are all now, older guys like me. But when I was younger, people would say I looked like Jason Bateman, when I was 16 or 17. And then people said that I looked a lot like, oh gosh, how could I draw a blank for this actor? He was Blast from the Past, George of the Jungle, Brendan Fraser. So I look like Brendan Fraser, and I've also gotten the guy who played number 2 on Picard.
Jonathan Frakes.
There you go. So those are people that and no, it wasn't Brendan Fraser in Whale. So oh, she missed it. She's snoozing over there. That's right. I said Brendan Fraser in Whale. You don't know? Oh, he gained a lot of weight. It was a guy who was. Yeah, sorry. But it also isn't from George of the Jungle. It was Blast from the Past because I had a flat top. All right.
How tall was your dad?
5'10"? Yeah. Oh no, a lot of people played in the military. So yeah. So I enlisted in 1989 into the Army, and I went to Germany. And pretty much, even in basic training before that, when people would see my name, they'd, Gygax, is that any relation? And I was like, yes, that's my dad. And they're like, no way, that's your dad? What are you doing in the Army? And of course, my dad lost his company in 1985 and spent pretty much most of his fortune fighting to get it back. Then he said, okay, great, I'm a tenacious guy. I'm going to create another game system that's going to do great. And so he created what was first going to be called Dangerous Dimensions, and then his lawyer said, well, you know what, we might be opening ourselves up to being DD and D&D, so let's go ahead and try Dangerous Journeys instead. So he wrote a multi-genre system, and the first one he developed was Unhallowed, which was a horror series, which was quite good. I'll play test that. And then he developed Mythos, and that came out, was published by Game Designers Workshop, I think in the early 90s. And unfortunately, he was sued by the people at TSR and said, you thought of that stuff while you were at TSR. And of course, how do you prove that? Well, you have to go to court and there's long litigation and stuff. They waited very cleverly to drop that right when Game Designers Workshop, the second biggest company, had printed all of these books. So all of their money was tied up in books. Then there was an injunction they couldn't sell them. They had no money to defend themselves. So they had to actually declare bankruptcy, settle, and my dad lost his second game system they designed. So that was very difficult. So that set off a few years of him just going, wow, I don't think this game design thing is really worth it. And that was a tough nut. But for me, during that time, I was in the Army up until 93, and then I got out and was in the reserves for a little bit, and then went back active duty. But pretty much any time, you're wearing the name Gygax on your chest. And I got that question a lot. A lot of people were gamers. And as time went on, a lot of them were colonels and generals and stuff like that. And they'd be like, no way, that's cool. I'm like, yes, sir, it is. Because I went out and went to OCS, and I was, made it up to lieutenant colonel myself. But I was a captain when my dad passed away, and I was in recruiting command. And so you always carry your phone. You're always going to answer your phone when you're in recruiting command. And I remember it was like the day after my dad passed, the phone rang and I picked it up, and it was a colonel. And so he's like, oh, I just looked up your number in the DoD directory. I just thought I was going to leave a message, but I wanted to tell you, thank you for answering the phone. I just wanted to tell you personally how much Dungeons and Dragons influenced my life and where I am today, and just to say that I'm very sorry to hear that he passed, and I wanted to thank him, and I can't do that anymore. And so yeah, I get a lot of people thanking me for Dungeons and Dragons. That made me feel very awkward at first. So I was like, I loved it. I got to play a lot of D&D. I played tested some stuff, but certainly not my work in creating the rule set. Then of course I realized, oh, this is not about me. I am here to hear this so that they feel heard. They get to communicate that and to say thank you. And it's really been an amazing thing to hear all these stories about how powerful it is, and it helps me understand what this game does for the world. And it's not just in the United States. I was lucky enough to go to Croatia in June, and there were some young people there, boys and girls, or young men and women, guessing 17, 18. And they were so excited, and they came up and were, oh, it's so great to meet you, and thank you, and Dungeons & Dragons is the best thing. And they told me this story I've heard many times. Last year, I was all alone, and I didn't have any friends. And I just felt isolated. And then I found Dungeons & Dragons. And now I have a whole group of friends. And I've got this character, and I'm going to tell you about my adventures and that sort of stuff. And I think they came up to me 3 different times during that long weekend with, oh, this is my friend, who's also in the group or whatever. And that's universal. That's around the United States. It's Europe. I went to a convention in Dubai, the first tabletop RPG game convention, or actually tabletop game convention in the Middle East, Tabletop Me, and I heard the same stories from the men and women there. And so it's like, it doesn't matter what country you come from. It doesn't really matter what age you are either, because I think a lot of elderly folks are learning how to game with their grandchildren, and it's providing a way to connect them as well. But it's a great way to bring people together and not feel isolated and have a great time. So, yes.
What do you think your father would be most surprised by in the gaming system today? And is there any particular aspect you think he would love or hate?
I know he wasn't a fan of drow being player characters. So he was like, those are monsters. They're supposed to be evil. So I think he had Dungeons and Dragons, for him, especially, I think, was meant to be a lesson and to establish a certain bit of morals in people. If you played evil characters, nobody was your friend. You were going to backstab each other. People that you were dealing with who knew, were also going to, if they were evil, were going to, try to cheat, kill, steal, rob, etc. You couldn't trust anybody. And he saw, ideally, he didn't really run any. I think I played one evil character and I didn't do very well with it, but he expected you to be at least neutral, if not good, because Greyhawk was often, the call to adventure was, evil is on the rise. Good people are dying. What are you going to do to stop this? And that was your call to adventure. It wasn't to, oppress people and create a, become Ias and crush, everybody around you and rise to power that way. Sure, some people play that. You can play D&D however you want. But his games were more about bad stuff is happening. What are you going to do? And so I think, that's where he came from. And playing monsters took away from the really simplicity of a fantasy world where there are gods who are good, there are gods who are bad, and some of these monsters were created by evil, and they aren't like everybody else. Don't put human characteristics on them, right? They are just, in essence, bad creatures, like from a fairy tale, right? From folklore, evil creatures. So he didn't like that part, but that's probably a nitpicky little thing that he would talk about. I think the things that he would find irritating, and irritating wise because it would get in the way of good gameplay, is there's a lack of tension if you have too many safety nets. So for a good game, you want to have heart racing action and tension. And he really, he didn't often like too much, well, I shouldn't say that. He didn't like too much role playing in the 80s. It was more about the adventure, whether that's solving riddles or fighting things. Then in the later 90s, when I was gaming with him, I used to hate some of the things he'd do because he was designing settings, right? And so they'd be like, okay, great, I'm like, yes, let's go off and go into the castle. And he's like, no. First you have to prepare yourselves and get supplies. I'm like, great, we go to the things. No. And I'd have to go around to various shops and haggle with the shopkeepers and try to get the better price. And he's like, all right, roll the dice. I'm like, oh, come on, are you kidding? He's like, no, people like to do this. This is great. And he'd taken a few trips to Morocco where he'd learned to haggle a little bit. And so he really liked that. So in these settings, there was a lot of haggling with shopkeepers and that sort of stuff. And as a 20-something, young 20s or mid-20s even guy, I was like, why am I shopping and haggling all this stuff? But people love that sort of thing. And you have different personalities for your shopkeepers and some charts on, what's going to influence and that sort of stuff. So, but mostly he liked to keep the action rolling and that sort of stuff. But he did adapt his style over time to encompass what folks wanted. So don't make it too easy. If it's too easy, you have no skin in the game. Where is the excitement in that? I remember, as an example, one time I was like, well, I'm rolling up a character for something. I was like, well, can I get this, and this? He's like, oh, okay. He's like, so you want to re-roll those things so you have all great statistics, right? He's like, great. You have all 18s and everything. What? Oh, great. Okay, and he just took me on an adventure where I won, got all the magic items, got all the stuff in half an hour. And he's like, okay, great. You're now a god. You can crush anything. I was like, okay. He's like, now would you like to play the game and start working for stuff. And I was like, okay, I get it. So he was just, that was more the point. I guess it's not I'm going to sound philosophical now. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey with your character, right? And working through stuff, learning about them, and having fun. My friend Jerry Savage is here. He runs Savage Creations. I've been gaming with him since he was in high school, and I was, in junior high school. And he rolled up a character, Urav the Savage. He was not a barbarian. There was no barbarian class at that time. But gosh, I think his highest stat was maybe a 14, right? In AD&D. So he had no heroic abilities or whatever, but he still just adventured and, rounded out as Urav the Savage. So, and he adventured with Melf all through Sajkanth and stuff like that. And sure, he wasn't the most powerful character, but he was there and had fun and developed them and got items, and that was part of it. If you had weaknesses, you had to work on them and find ways to improve them. Kind of a bit of a life lesson in that as I reflect upon that. As you continue to work and gain experience, you find ways to make yourself better and more capable. It's again another long-winded, windy answer to a question. All right.
With some of the eating habits and just, in the 70s, back in those days, is that what kind of influenced you to kind of get, I know you're in armed services,
Yeah.
You got a good regiment there, but is that what got you into your fitness journey now? I see you a lot posting, about being in the gym with your family and all that stuff.
Yeah. Mostly, I just want to stay alive and have a good quality of life, and I think that's important. And when I post, what I realized I was just posting, hey, I'm in the gym and doing stuff, and people started messaging me and asking me for advice. I'm not a physical trainer. I'm not a doctor. I don't have any degrees that are in that. So I figured, well, I'm probably not the guy to be dispensing advice on what you should do. But I know that having community helps motivate people. And so I just started a little Facebook group and said, hey, how about, Body by Gygax? It's like 6 months to Gary Con. Pick a goal and work at it for 6 months, post 3 times a week, at least whatever it is, whatever activity it is that you want to do, 30 minutes, 3 times a week, post about it and encourage others, and let's see where we go with it. And so that was kind of the start of that more publicly. And what made me want to talk about it and address this more is people like Jim Ward. He's known Jim since, he knew me since I was just a kid, knee high to a grasshopper. And, I liked Jim. He was kind of like an uncle. And then he would tell, is awesome. Jim was great DM, excellent. He loved fast food and sugary sodas, right? And so he got diabetes. And he didn't want to listen to his doctor and not change, and change his diet and that sort of thing. And so then he got you have the wound on his foot that wasn't healing. And then, he's going all through all these things. And then, of course, as we know, diabetes is pretty awful thing. He lost his foot, then he lost his leg up to his knee, and all these sorts of things. And he would post about it and telling people, don't be like me. And then I'd go through my Facebook feed and I'd see, another good friend, real nice, nice person that, I'm in the hospital again with atrial fibrillation and, cardiac issues. And, they're, there's a big, this particular person, big guy, but, 350, 400 pounds, right? So he's obviously, got too much weight. I thought, man, these are mostly, you can greatly reduce your chances of suffering some really awful consequences by a little bit of managing the diet and a little bit of exercise, right? I love steak and ribeye and fatty foods and salty stuff, just more than other people, right? I will just say I love that stuff. And if I don't want to get myself in trouble, I have to make sure I exercise to help combat some of my bad habits, right? And I need to try to minimize it. I have high blood pressure, so I'm on high blood pressure medicine. I'm on cholesterol medicine to try and combat those things because I'm 55, right? So sure, I try to stay active because I have daughters between 12 and 18, and I would like to be here for a nice long time. And I guess what we're really trying to say is that by example, I can help others get in the gym, outside, walk, bicycle, swim, lift weights, whatever it is that they want to do, and just improve their quality of life, lower their chances for some of these pitfalls that are there, and be able to hang out and game with their friends, and be there for their family and loved ones that's a huge positive. And honestly, gaming is great, but if I can encourage, where 10 people or 100 people to live a better life and be here longer, I think that's pretty important. So that's where that motivation comes from. And my wife tells me to go to the gym too, so I have to go.
I thought you would never mention me.
I've mentioned you a couple times. Ladies and gentlemen, my beautiful wife, Bushra.
He said that Gary went to Morocco and he learned to haggle. Gary loved me very, very much. You know why? Because I'm originally from Morocco. And he loved Morocco too. So.
He did, and she's a good cook.
So I want to say something about Luke. I can share this. Maybe it will make you laugh. So being from Morocco, I love bread. When I came to the States, Luke shared with me, what is it, pizza pockets here?
Yeah, a panzerotti, if you guys know what
Pizzas
panzerottis are.
was really
It's a deep fried pizza pocket.
Okay, so I could not eat those. So when we
so
got
good.
married, I never bought was it Wonder bread? I never bought that. So I bought whole wheat bread. You cannot imagine the disappointment on Luke's face. What is this? So, anyways, the journey for our journey to be healthy throughout, since we met, to be honest, it's just a change of, we kept changing food and kept changing different things. To him in the military, having to pass the PT exam has had a great impact on him. And that honestly, when he retired, he loved more to work out more than when he was in the military. And it was very, very refreshing to see him doing something for himself and for the community, not because he has to pass an exam, but
Yeah, I actually decided I liked working out
yeah.
more just on my own terms and doing what I wanted to do, as opposed to somebody telling me you have to do this.
So it's being part of Body by Gygax and being part of the community was a great motivator to a lot of our attendees and the TTRPG community. A lot of people would come to the merch
Yeah.
and say, Luke motivated me. You guys post pictures working out. I have been working out. I lost some weight. So last year I had 3XL shirts, and today I would like 2X. 1X. So honestly, the smaller sizes at the merch booth, we ran out of them, which is, I can feel that in the community. A lot of people are, implementing those healthy lifestyle because it's gamers. They had that perception in the community, like gamers are just in the basement, they're just playing and eating bad food, but it has changed, and gamers are active members of the community and, taking care of themselves. And
Yeah.
having fun.
It's true. And that perception of gamers as, chips and Mountain Dew and that sort of stuff. Sure, yes. I guess when I was 15, it was Mountain Dew and Cheetos and stuff like that. But we're a little bit older now. We're coming in lots of different age groups, right? But a focus on being a bit healthier is nice. And honestly, even as Gary Con has progressed, I've, our menu used to be all the fast food kind of things, but now we get the calls for, do you have some fresh fruit? Can we get some salad? Is there any leaner, options, and including also your vegetarian and vegans? I'm sorry, that one's harder to help you out on, but I understand. Try to help out everybody and accommodate. But no, it's great to see folks taking interest in being here longer and being stronger and living longer. So whatever we can do to encourage that, and yeah, awesome. Let's go.
And then can you tell us what to expect with Rogue's Gambit on Kickstarter? I saw that finally finished out.
Oh yeah. Rogue's Gambit is fun. So that was just a really silly adventure. So I go to a lot of conventions, and I'm running my modules that are probably a 12-hour module, and trying to hammer it out in 4 hours. Man, that's hard. You have to cut a lot of corners, right? And so you end up modifying it anyway. I was running, somebody had me run DM for Deb Wool and a couple other folks at Gen Con a couple years ago. And I just needed a 2-hour adventure. It was like a 2-hour adventure? What in the world am I going to do? So I just thought, okay, it was a bunch of actors. People would be on the guild and things like that in Deb. And so I was like, okay, let's see, what could I do that would be fun? And I came up with an idea of basically putting them on a game show. and so that's what they do. They're all playing miscreants, rogues of ill repute, bad character. They all have flaws, gambling, alcohol, fighting, stealing, etc. And they get themselves in a bind, and they end up basically it's Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, or Honey, I Shrunk the Adventurers meets the Running Man, and that's Miles Run. I ran it all over the place. I ran it in, all over the U.S., Europe, and even in the Middle East. Never had a bad game. So I was like, you know what, let's go ahead and put this one out there. Of course, we changed it a little bit for publication and give you some options so that you can take your campaign characters through there and not kill them. But pretty much, usually there's high casualty rate in this game. Even in 5e, I had some fun traps in there that were just a lot of fun. And I like to play Arithcon Bobius. Just call me Bob. My friends call me Bob, who's this really annoying evil wizard who is basically sort of like Richard Dawson in The Running Man, right? He's the really annoying character who's always hosing him, and so when the characters love it. And in my version of it that I run, which I don't think we didn't include this in the published version. Anyway, we give you other riddles. I got to include a lot of dad jokes as riddles in one of the things. So that was totally awesome. So I got to work on some of those with my kids, and they're like, these are terrible. I was like, yes, that's perfect. So I guess I just loved it so much, and I said, why not? Let's get it out there, and hopefully the world enjoys that and can run it at conventions or run it for their friends to bedevil and annoy them and laugh.
What was the name again?
Rogue's Gambit.
Speaking as somebody who died last October to some of those riddles, just out of curiosity, was there anything resembling a self-insert to the son of Bob?
No, he's a horrible kid. I was not a bad kid. And my daughters are too sweet. They would never do that. Amira doesn't even like to squish a bug. She's such an animal lover. So no, my kids are not going to try to dump you into a pool with giant sharks. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Does love for puns come from your dad?
Yes. Oh.
For loving them to make people roll their eyes?
Yes. I am much more merciful than my father. He would take at least 20 minutes to deliver a bad pun, to tell you the story. And I got to hear them multiple times because it would be different people. And I was like, oh, not this one again. He's like, settle down. And then he'd take him on this ride, and it all end on a terrible pun. So I did tell one of his last night. Yeah.
Perfect. It's great.
It was great. And there was a friend of mine who's Irish, and he was here. And
Great author.
he is a great author, Brian Norden. So yeah, the Quest Academy. It's pretty fun stuff. But anyway, I got to tell him a terrible pun.
What was that pun?
Oh,
They don't have that much time to tell it. Tune back in next time
5 minutes.
to get that terrible pun. Yeah.
Everybody's excited about you working with D&D.
Yes.
And Mel getting the spotlight.
Yeah.
That he deserves. I know you have a lot of other collaborations and other
Yeah.
projects, like Operum and the work you've done with Gooey Cube.
Yeah.
And the work you've done with Troll Lord.
Absolutely.
Can you speak a little bit about those?
Yeah. No, my dance card is full. So I love working in Oakrim. It's a fun setting that I've tinkered with for over a decade. And I will probably be putting those adventures on the back burner so that I can focus on Greyhawk. That's a wider audience, and what an opportunity! How can I not do that? Gooey Cube, we're already hip deep in that. We're going to keep going with that, and I love working with the team at Gooey Cube. They're great people. They put out outstanding, high quality product, and are doing it all for the right reasons. So I'll continue with that. I made a promise to my dad that we would get Castle Zagig out, which is based on his original Greyhawk material. So we're going to continue to do that, and working with Troller Games and Steve Chenault, a good friend, who also made that promise to my dad. And we worked a lot of years to be in the position where we are now, where we get to do that. If I can get some of my dad's work as official D&D product, well, that'd be great, but there's no promises on that. You know, those are discussions to be had, but that'd be really wonderful, and that would be something that's totally awesome. So if I have my dream book, I'm already living the dream, honestly. This is pretty amazing, so I'm very thankful for that. But the next incredible step would be seeing some of my dad's work released again in his official D&D product. So that would truly be wonderful. But no, I'm not going to abandon those projects, and World of Oakrim will continue, but probably at a much reduced rate, and they'll get the attention that I can give it. But priority is going to be to Greyhawk, Castle Zagig, and Gooey Cube.
You mentioned some of those modules when you were really young.
Yeah.
You'd see the image and you'd kind of be attracted. Was there one in particular that you were like, "This is awesome"?
Oh, like an image from in the monster manual, or?
Like you had dyslexia and that kind of thing. So
Oh, I didn't. People would tell me that they did. I didn't. No, I was very fortunate. I don't have any learning disabilities. No, but sure, my wife thinks that. Okay, I can't make that joke. I'm just kidding. So no, thankfully, I always did pretty well in school. Any issues I had were more attention based, of just not paying attention and being distracted and wanting to play games or read books and do things that were naughty and not focus. And my daughters did that too. They were always in trouble for reading their books under the desk, like holding the book under the desk and reading in class and getting caught by the teacher.
All the things again.
I know, you're reading too much, kid. Cut it out.
That was how I read Dragonlance.
Right? Yeah. I think I was reading the Belgariad that way. If you guys remember that, is it David Eddings? How do I remember that? Yeah. That was so fun, man. I loved those ones. Oh, yeah. It's great stuff.
Probably have time for one more question and then we'll wrap up.
Yes.
Back to kind of cultural history.
Mhm.
It seems like you might have had a front row seat to the Satanic Panic that happened. How did that feel from inside your family?
It was very scary. So it seems ludicrous today that people actually thought that Dungeons and Dragons was from the devil. But it was real. And just like people were blaming Ozzy Osbourne for, the Suicide Solution as a song. And I'm a parent. I understand how awfully upsetting it must be to lose a child, right? For whatever reason. And you want to find something to blame that on, right? So I think these people were very upset and maybe weren't thinking clearly and didn't understand what Dungeons and Dragons was, and there's a little bit behind that the media is a little bit culpable as well. Was it Dallas Egbert III? James Dallas Egbert III, yes, and he was in University in Michigan. I can't remember exactly what that one was, but he disappeared. He was a prodigy. He was about 15 years old, if I remember correctly, and he disappeared. And his parents were wealthy. They hired a private investigator to find out what happened to him. And this guy saw evidence of Dungeons and Dragons play in his dorm room. And I guess they used to go into the steam tunnels. And maybe that was a cool place to have, because it's kind of dungeon-like. So it was, just setting the scene, right? So there was some supposition, perhaps he's been abducted by a satanic coven. And that is what's happened to poor James Dallas Egbert. And so it was on the nightly news for a while. And there was lots of preachers out there who, really were, if you give me your money, we'll go ahead and make sure this satanic Dungeons and Dragons will no longer, we're going to fight it. So they kind of whipped things up into a fervor and had book burnings and stuff like that. So all that's good theater. It's kind of funny. But if you're telling someone that this person is in league with the devil and they want the world to be a good place, they're going to take some extreme measures, right? So my dad was getting death threats. And so we took it pretty seriously. My dad would wear a bulletproof vest when he would go out into public. He'd carry a sidearm. He had a driver who also carried a sidearm. People would drive by our house a lot, real slow, which would freak my mom out. So we had a 6-foot fence put up around our home. We had a pack of Malamute husky dogs that we would let loose at night so they'd run around. So we'd get some early warning if anyone was there. We had motion detectors in the house, guns in every room. So yeah, it was pretty frightening. My mom even hopped in the car and followed somebody home one time who drove by the house and was like, "What are you doing driving by the house?" And Charles was like, "I'm really sorry. I'm just a huge fan of D&D and I wanted to see where I live." And she was like, "Oh, okay." So it was pretty frightening. Also, my dad and the whole family were Jehovah's Witnesses, and the organization came out and said Dungeons and Dragons is satanic, and you can't tell. And he's like, "Well, that's weird. I'm a Jehovah's Witness, so here what's going on." So there was a lot of irony in there, and of course now that all passed, and that wasn't universal. That was certain preachers and that were saying that sort of thing. I went to an Episcopalian military school for 10th grade on, and the padre would run the D&D games or the D&D club for us. So there was also plenty of teachers and religious figures who realized, oh, Dungeons and Dragons is a great for imagination. That's a really healthy way for kids to get together and play and avoid a lot of pitfalls in life. So it was balanced. But yeah, the satanic panic, there were some people who were vulnerable to suggestions, right, as there always are out there. And those death threats don't feel good when you're on the receiving end of them. It's no good. And we see even in today, that sort of, whipping people up into a lather of these people are bad and we're good results in really tragic stuff happening. So thank God none of that happened.
He was also quoted as saying to a lot of these people that were accusing him of this, have you actually read any of our books? No.
No, they just looked at the cover. Do you see that Afraid on there? No, that's Bottle City, dude. And this was the best one. He's like, if these spells are real, why would I publish them? I would just simply rule the world. Are you kidding me? If I could do all this stuff, why would I give this away to other people? This is ridiculous. So it really, if you put any thought into it, it falls flat on its face. And better yet, just watch somebody play D&D. Yeah, you're going to figure that out pretty quickly. I remember him pointing to stuff at he's like, look at the spell components for Gust of Wind. It's legumes, right? Lightning bolt, fur in a glass rod, rabbit's fur in a glass rod. I mean, come on, they're silly. They're kind of little jokes, right? So for the most part, that was funny. He did encourage people to do book burnings, though. He said, go out and buy all the books you can, burn them, and go out next week, buy them again, and burn them again. So book burnings were great because it was great. But no, thank you very much for these questions. It was a really pleasure talking to all of you.
Thanks, Luke.